incredible hearing. And that allows them to be pretty much flying mouse traps, which is why barn owls are known to kill and eat up to 2,000 mice in a single year. All right, if you want to get ready, we're going to see if someone's ready to come back here in just a second. Soren, you ready, buddy?
Yeah, exactly.
So these birds are incredible hunters of mice. You caught that one, Soren, you can just eat it. There you go. Now, we are very fortunate that barn owls are starting to make a comeback in New York. You see, in Western New York in the early 90s, the Ornithological Society of Buffalo did a census to try and find barn owls, and they couldn't find any. So Hog Creek got some adult birds that had been injured in other states. They had wing injuries and could no longer fly, so could not be released. But they were amazing parents. And so we started a reintroduction program and have released 235 barn owls into the skies of Western New York, and people are finally starting to see them again. So it's a great thing to have them out there going after all of those mice. I hope you got that shot. You still have your camera intact. You're a lucky one. Okay. Thank you very much. You can head back to your family. Let's give a round of applause for our volunteer. Jack, you're fired. All right. Now, one of the big questions that I get when we have owls out here is, how do I find out what owls I have in my own yard? Now, if you stopped at our exhibit tent, you may have seen a little tiny screech owl. Her name is Fern. She's in the log on the table. And screech owls make a real pretty little whinnying sound. So she sounds like this. Okay, then there are great horned owls, and great horned owls are your stereotypical ooh, ooh, ooh. My favorite are barred owls, and barred owls sound like this. Ooh, 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 ooh. Then you have barn owls, and I don't make that sound because it sounds like a woman's in a lot of trouble and we don't need the troopers running over here again. They were not very happy about that. All right, so that's a tip on how you can find out what owls are in your own yard. They tend to be most vocal in November and December. Okay, now, you may have never seen a barn owl or any owl in the wild, but I bet that all of you have seen this next bird as you're driving down the highway. His name is Talon, and he is a red-tailed hawk. Now, they do get their name from that signature red tail that they have, but you may see a hawk like Talon that does not have a red tail, has a brown tail with dark brown and black bars across it. It is still a red-tailed hawk, it's just a young one. They don't get this red tail until they are a year old. Now, this bird is not picky. He's very adaptable. They will live in the middle of the country to the middle of the city. There's actually red-tailed hawks that breed in New York City in the middle of the Central Park there. So they're very adaptable in where they live. Also very adaptable in what they eat. They will eat snakes, mice, rats, chipmunks, squirrels, rabbits, and if they're having problems finding food, that's fine. They like to live by the highway, so there's lots of fast food joints around there. Okay, roadkill is their version of fast food. So, if they're having problems hunting, we'll just go after some of that. There we go. Now, when Talon here was a young bird, he was out learning how to hunt. He still had his brown baby tail, as we call it. Okay, and a falconer spotted him in the distance, and she was out looking for her next hunting partner. She put the trap out, and Talon came down to it very, very quickly. When she went to get him off the trap, she found out why. He was starving, and he had a bad wound on his leg. Most likely what happened is he tried to grab a squirrel. And I don't know how many of you guys have ever caught a squirrel, but they don't just stop and say, "You caught me, have a nice meal." It fought back, and it bit his right leg so hard, he's got permanent tendon damage in that leg. So the falconer trapping him saved his life. Now she got him medical care and some rehabilitative care. Since he doesn't have the use of that foot back, he was not able to be released, and he's not able to be used for falconry, so he got sent to Hawk Creek to do demonstrations like this. But he is a romantic at heart, so his preference is long walks in the woods. That's his favorite pastime. And so what we do is at home, well, he does do this for all of you. He likes to go home where we can let him loose and let him have a little bit more freedom and choice in where he's going. And so we'll let him loose, and he'll follow us on walks through the woods. So that it's great mental exercise as well as physical exercise for him as well. It's just one of the things we try and do for our birds to give them the highest quality of life. Now, being the romantic that they are, red-tailed hawks do mate for life. And when these birds, when a male finds a female that he really likes, he's going to try and impress her, as males try and do. Doesn't always work, but that's okay. And so he's going to do these steep dives and he'll very gently touch the female on her back. When she decides that she accepts him, she will flip over, they will grab talons, and they will spiral down towards the earth, just like bald eagles do. Now when they get closer towards the earth, they will separate and go back up into the sky, circle around again, and often will repeat this. And this is just part of what helps to solidify their pair bond. Now this pair will stay together for their lifetime, and they tend to stay in the same territory, and they might have a few nests, and they'll use whichever one is most successful. If a nest is not successful one year, they will just move to another one, and once they find a good one, they're good to go, and they will stay right in that area. Now, we are going to say goodbye to Talon here, and we're going to introduce you to another bird, because we've seen some pretty amazing birds so far, right? Guys, I know it's kind of sunny, but we've seen some pretty cool birds so far, right? All right, thank you. These birds are pretty awesome. So, our next bird is perfect. Perfect in flight, form, and function. And that is the peregrine falcon. Now, during World War II, a fighter pilot was practicing maneuvers by diving his jet toward a flock of ducks, when suddenly a feathered missile came flying past his jet, taking a duck out ahead of him for dinner. Based on the plane's airspeed, he estimated that bird to be flying around 200 miles an hour. With advanced technology, this Top Gun has been clocked in a dive at 284 miles per hour, making this the fastest animal on the planet. Now, flying at those high speeds does come with a lot of hazards. Okay, one of those hazards is breathing. Breathing becomes very difficult at high speeds, and too much air pressure can actually damage the lungs. Peregrine falcons have an amazing adaptation to help them with this. Inside their nostrils, they have these cone-shaped bumps, and they can actually inflate this and deflate these just like a balloon. That helps them to regulate their air intake. Now, humans, when we were making our jets, as our jets got faster, started having issues with the engine stalling. That's a big problem. By studying the peregrine falcon, which we did a lot for our own aviation because they are obviously one of the top flyers in the world, you'll now notice that if you look at a plane, on the air intake for the engines, there's a metallic cone there. It helps to regulate the air intake to give the engine oxygen so that it doesn't stall out. So it's a great solution to a problem that humans had in our own aviation. And one of the things you're going to notice with Blaze is she does have her right wing closest to Melissa is that nice, beautiful, pointed falcon wing that you would think of. Her left wing doesn't look right. And that's because when she was about a year old, she flew into a skyscraper window. She became stunned, fell to the sidewalk below, and shattered her left wing. Unfortunately, birds do not understand the concept of windows. One of two things happens. Either they can see through it, they think they can fly through it, or they see the reflection, think it's another bird, and try and chase it out of their territory, which is how these injuries happen. Unfortunately, Blaze is not able to be rehabilitated and released. She'll never be able to fly properly again. But she is an amazing ambassador for her species, and she also has another very important job. She is a foster mom. We're very fortunate in Buffalo to have several breeding pairs of peregrine falcons, and when those chicks get bumped out of the nest for one reason or another too early, or if they get injured, when they come to Hawk Creek, they get to go in with Blaze, because no one can raise a peregrine falcon better than a peregrine falcon. In fact, the first 3 chicks that we were ready to put, that needed to be fostered by her, she'd never had her own chicks because she was immature when she was originally injured. And so we put a cage over top of the chicks before we put her in there, just in case she had a negative reaction to them. In less than an hour, she was trying to feed those babies through the bars. So we knew that she was ready for motherhood, so we went ahead and pulled that cage off, and ever since, she's actually raised 7 chicks now, and all of them have been successfully released back to the wild. Now we are going to say goodbye to Blaze, and we can give her a round of applause. She's pretty awesome. Now, for our next bird, he's very different, and I'm going to need some volunteers. So I need multiple volunteers. You have to be very brave, and you have to be willing to lay down on the ground. Come on in, come on in. It can be kids or adults. Come on in, sweetheart. Come on in. Does anyone over here want to join us? Come on in, buddy. Come on. Come on. You guys come in. Dudes, dudettes, come on. All right. I'm going to have you guys stand right here, shoulder to shoulder, facing the bleachers. So stand in a straight line. All right. Anyone else want to come up and join us? No? All right. I'm gonna have you guys scooch down this way, just so we can even it out a little bit. So scooch down this way, scooch down this way. All right, awesome. All right, now I want all of you to look at your families. Wave them goodbye. All right. A couple parents that looked a little too excited there. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you guys do is lay down on your backs with your feet towards the bleachers and your head towards the tent. Excellent. Now, our next bird coming out is a turkey vulture. I think some people know what turkey vultures eat. So turkey vultures are scavengers. They eat things that are already dead. So you guys need to stay really still, but don't act too dead. We wouldn't want people to be confused. Coming in for a landing is Puke the turkey vulture. All right. Now, turkey vultures are really designed for soaring high up in the air. They will find rising hot air and those rising wind thermals, and they will just soar there for hours and hours and hours. All right, but Puke here has been trained to fly low above our stand-in carcasses. Sorry, volunteers. Now, one thing about turkey vultures is they're one of the only birds in the world that has an amazing sense of smell. He can smell rotting meat from 8 miles away when he's 1,000 feet up in the air. That means he knows which of you has not showered today. All right, now we've got him caught up, so you guys are going to go ahead and make the zombie apocalypse and rise and head back to your families. Thank you for helping us out today. Now, one thing that I didn't want to say until you were done with that is that because they have an amazing sense of smell, you can actually see right through Puke's nostrils. Sometimes he gets food stuck in there and he picks his nose. So any of you that got brushed by his feet, congratulations, you got turkey vulture boogers for free. All right. Now, turkey vultures do have some disgusting habits, one of which is picking their nose. The other is, some of you are looking at this very handsome bird going, how does a bird like that get a name like Puke? Well, you see, when vultures find food, they never know when they're going to find their next meal. So they will eat as much as they can, as fast as they can, to the point that they're too heavy to fly. So if something comes after them and they need to fly away, they will puke, bark, vomit, retch, whichever word you prefer. It helps them to instantly lose weight. And remember, they ate rotting meat. It smelled really bad when they ate it. It smells worse the second time around. Trust me. Now, the third disgusting thing that vultures do is, unfortunately, you may look at Puke's feet and may notice that they look kind of whitish. They're actually supposed to be pretty pink. And that's because when vultures get hot, they can't sweat, so they will pee on their own legs. All right, that helps them to cool down, functions just like sweat. Air comes along, takes the moisture away, cools down the blood moving through the legs, prevents them from overheating. Now, all these disgusting things aside, these vultures are vital to keeping our planet healthy and clean, because this bird can eat carcasses that have anthrax, botulism, E. coli, salmonella, and rabies, and he doesn't get sick. They eat most naturally occurring diseases and get it out of the environment. They break it down for us and stop the spread of disease. That's why vultures are so, so important. We're very fortunate that turkey vultures are doing well here in North America. Unfortunately, not all vultures are doing well. And one example of that is Cleo, the Egyptian vulture. Now, Egyptian vultures are found in Asia and Africa. And in Asia, the problem was historically a anti-inflammatory drug that was given to cattle. And when the cattle would die in the fields, the vultures would come in to clean it up. And for some reason, this anti-inflammatory drug that was in their system caused renal failure in the vultures. So they lost over 95% of their vulture population, which caused a huge boom in feral dogs, which then started spreading rabies throughout the continent. Now in Africa, unfortunately, the situation is just as grim. Poachers hate vultures, because when vultures find a carcass, they circle. Let all their other vulture friends know, hey, I found food. If we all gather together, we can keep the wildcats and the jackals and all the other scavengers at bay, because we'll have more numbers. So that means that rangers will follow vultures to look for animals that have been poached illegally. So poachers have been putting out poison and trying to kill off the vultures. And there has been 500 vultures found dead from one single poisoning. These species are very slow to reproduce, very slow to mature, and they, in just 3 generations, they have lost 80% of their vulture population, predominantly due to poisoning, but also electrocutions. It's a big problem. The vulture crisis is one of the leading conservation concerns in the world today, and one that not many people know about, because let's face it, when you think of vultures, what do you think of? Ugly, scary birds circling the guy that's been in the desert for way too long without water. Okay, so they have this very scary, gross, dirty, mean, public image that we're trying to change. And the tides are starting to change. People are starting to take notice. People are realizing how important these birds are and starting to make a difference in their conservation. And we really don't want to leave you guys with a sense of doom and gloom, because there's a lot of bright spots on the conservation front as well. And I'm going to come back here and grab our next bird, because he really is kind of the icon of the bright spots of conservation. And this tends to be the bird that people are usually waiting for. So it is the most iconic and recognized bird in the world, which means, you can't rush him. He's kind of a diva. So if you give me 1 second here. Come on up, bud. Okay, can you guys guess what the most iconic bird in the world is?
Chicken.
What? No, it's the bald eagle. What are you guys talking about? Jack, why do you have a chicken? To be fair, it is very iconic and it is very well recognized, isn't it? I realized the flaw in my plan. Back to the tent. You're still fired. You guys were in the splash zone. I didn't tell you that, did I? Sorry. Every show, this is his spot. Now, what I was talking about is the bald eagle. In the 60s and 70s, these birds were almost wiped out due to a chemical called DDT. It was sprayed on all of our plants. When it washed into our waterways, it contaminated the fish that these birds rely on. At the lowest point, New York State was down to 1 single known bald eagle in the state. But New York State has something to be proud of that I found a lot of New Yorkers don't know. The Peregrine Fund was started right here in New York State by a man named Tom Cade and Cornell University. They got together and they started doing a reintroduction program for bald eagles and peregrine falcons. And this meant that the bald eagle went from being one of the first animals to be placed on the endangered species list to becoming one of the first animals to be removed from the endangered species list in 2007. The work that was done here in New York State has been the framework for conservation programs worldwide that is still used today. And that's something for New York State to be proud of, because we can now see our national symbol soaring our New York skies once again. Every year we see bald eagles soaring right over there. So they are coming back as we continue to clean up our waterways and continue to make the environment a cleaner place for them and for us. Now, bald eagles are extremely strong birds. They have 550 pounds of pressure per square inch in their talons. Very powerful. But it's still a very tough place for bald eagles. For Griffin here, he is an example of that. When he was about 2 years old, he's 11 years old now, he was fishing the waterways of Missouri when he got tangled in discarded fishing line. It wrapped around his toe, causing him to lose a toe on his right foot, and wrapped around his wings so he could no longer fly properly anymore. Because of that, he was not able to be released, and so he came to Hawk Creek to become an ambassador for his species and to give people a better chance and a better look at the king of birds and our national symbol. Because since the first humans have looked skyward, we have been obsessed with flying. And no matter what amazing technology we have had and we have come up with, nothing compares and can truly replicate the majesty of a bird soaring and flying using nothing more than the power of their own 2 wings and their millions of complex, unassuming feathers. From the strength of the eagle, the speed of the falcon, the stealth of the owl, raptors truly are the fastest, strongest, quietest, most powerful things with wings. Thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please stop over to our exhibit tent. If you'd like to get photos with Caspian and Dumbledore here, you can see Melissa and Jack. $10 donation all goes back to these birds and our rehabilitation work. Enjoy the rest of your day at the fair.